All right, everybody. Want to welcome everybody to the newest episode here of the Olé Soccer Podcast. We have a very special guest with us today, Coach Bradley Mulvey. Funny story, we connected a few years back. He came out and did a great clinic with some of our players in Silmar El Carrizo Park, if anybody knows where that's at. If you're from the San Fernando Valley or LA area, you're familiar with that. But we connected. I briefly reached out and we talked a bit, and Coach Bradley was starting his journey and continuing to work with more players. So we want to get into the story of Coach Bradley, how he started. I'm really excited to talk to him. Coach Bradley and myself, we go back and forth on ideas on how important individual training is. I send him articles all the time on how important team training is,
which I love, by
what's
the way.
better. So it's going to be a fun conversation today. I'm excited to get to know him on a personal level as well. So without further ado, I want to welcome Coach Bradley to the podcast. How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I was looking forward to this because I know the importance of individual training. I used to do it a lot. I understand your point of view when it comes to connecting directly with that player, because when I did do it many years ago, I was able to really get something out of the player that they weren't really receiving in the team environment, right? The individual attention, et cetera, right? Now, everybody's coaching journey and goals, et cetera, all different, but I want to know a little bit more before we dive into that. I want to know a little bit more about your story, where you're from, how you got into the game, and how you got into coaching. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so I'm from Glasgow, Scotland, and I started playing like most Scottish boys probably when I was like 2 or 3. Loved the game, always had a ball at my feet, practiced as much as I could. And then when I was about 16, I signed for a team called Motherwell. So I signed kind of like a part-time contract. So you go in. So I still trained with my team at nighttime, but I would train with the older team in the mornings, and they also offered schooling as well. I'd done that for 2 years. It was good. And I came for a holiday in LA, as you do. And it was during the summer. I wanted to keep playing. I didn't want to stop playing. I wanted to, find a team. And funny enough, I went and played with Real SoCal. And before that, I had came to LA a few times. My sister came here. She was doing some acting stuff, which is interesting. But so I came here a few times. So I knew LA a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I came here, played a few scrimmages. Terry Davila, who's the coach at CSUN, he saw me and he offered me a scholarship to come to CSUN. So I decided to take it. And one of the reasons was, lifestyle, but also, I felt that Scottish football wasn't really progressing that much, and I saw a lot of people around me who were friends and who were people that were on the same journey as me, get released or get, their contracts cut and didn't really have anything to do. They couldn't really figure out a way to move forward in their life. And so I decided to kind of do something different. I decided to come to LA, get an education, play. And so I played for CSUN, which was good. It was a good experience. It was a different experience. I think the style of soccer was extremely different and something that I definitely wasn't used to. When you're under a certain development process your whole life and then you leave, it was kind of there was definitely a period where I had to figure out, had to try and assimilate to that style. And it was pretty tough in those moments. And we can get through that as we go. But and then I was at CSUN, and 2.5 years into my CSUN career, the NCAA put me under review. And I was told that it was probably because I played at Motherwell. And so they put me under review. And after that, they told me I can't play another game. So the decision for me was, go back home or finish out my schooling. And I decided to finish out my schooling. And in that time, I recognized that I still training. My goal was always after college, go look to find a pro contract. That was always the goal in America. And as I was doing that, I started training. I can't even remember how it started, but I think I knew a kid from the CSUN soccer camps. His name was Nico Rosa. I don't know if you know Nico, but he's a great kid. And I said I wanted to train him. We connected at the soccer camps. I used to do them every year, and he would go every single year. And we connected, and for some reason, I was like, I want to help this kid. He loved the game. He was super passionate, and I just wanted to help. And so we started doing training sessions. And I think at that point, I was getting paid $30 or something like that. Even I think it was 25 or something. But it was just to help him out. It was honestly just to like still be in the game, still connect a little bit. And I really enjoyed it. Like really, really enjoyed it. And my thought was always maybe go into coaching, but it was always the team game. Always the team game. And then there was something about those sessions that connected with me a little more and allowed me to connect with the player a little more. Because I always felt that when I was playing, the relationship between yourself and the coach was personable, but only enough to where it would help or hurt the team, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it was really hard to connect with that coach. And then I realized that I could be someone that kids could connect with, right? And it wouldn't just end with them moving team or whatever. Like I still talk to a lot of my players who are older now in college and stuff like that. And we still talk, we just talk. We don't even talk about soccer, we just talk, right? And so for me, that was the thing that grabbed me. It was the personal connection. And then as I went, I started understanding a little more the details of individual training and what that is. And I've done a lot of learning, and we're always sharing books and stuff like that, but a lot of learning about, you know, the details on how to progress a player from a certain age to a certain age, right? And so yeah, I think for me it was very organic. It was based on me wanting to help a player, and then from there it kind of progressed. And then so I started doing that, and then he had a friend who wanted to train, and then he had a friend, and you know how it goes. There was no social media for me back then. It was just word of mouth, you know, people enjoying it. And I look back to, I don't know if you ever do this, but I look back and I was on the side of a grass field, terrible grass, trees in the way, right? Like the sessions weren't great. I don't know why people even came to my sessions. They weren't great at the beginning. But I then it progressed, you know, like over time it progressed, and then I moved to Woodsit, and it's progressed. And then, you know, I'm very grateful for the players I have and have trained over that period of time. But yeah, looking back, it's kind of crazy to think, you know. And like when I first started too, I didn't have a car. So one of my friends, I had no money, right? One of my friends was nice enough to let me put my stuff in his house, which was like a mile away from the park. So I would get an Uber, and I would get one of the Uber shares, which sometimes took longer, which was stressful, and I would get all my stuff, and I'd walk my stuff to the park. And then I walk my stuff back at nighttime to his house, and then get an Uber back. And sometimes, you know yourself, you turn up and they don't show. So then I was down money, you know, and it was like one of those things where that was maybe 7-8 months I'd done that. Until I could save up to buy a car, which, you know, looking back, sometimes I actually kind of enjoy that was part of my path, you know, looking back at it. But yeah, so it's crazy. But yeah, that's kind of the story.
And so how long ago was that when you first started that journey of becoming?
Yeah, like 4.5 years ago.
Okay.
4.5 years ago was when I first started. Yeah.
Close to 5. And through your own personal experience, right? I like what you said, because I think a lot of us can relate to this. When you start, you're there to help. You said that word, and that really stuck out to me, because more than anything, you said, I just want to help this kid. I want to help, right? Because I think when we get into coaching, when we get into whatever it is that, you know, our intentions are, we got to know our why. Why are we doing this? Why am I spending my time, my money, more than anything, my time, right? That's something we can't get back. Why am I spending my time in this specific niche, right? Or industry or career, whatever it is, and why? And if you have your why down, you're going to find a way, and from you not having a car, that Uber story, that's amazing. That's amazing. And then now you're taking it 4.5, almost 5 years now. You're getting better. But again, I feel like just watching on the field, like I could tell that your intentions are really there to help, right? And you've gotten better, you've done research, and now I think more than anything, what I've noticed is a lot of demand from your type of help, right? And you specifically in the area that we live in. Now, if someone's starting out, what's something that, let's say they want to take a similar journey, they want to help people, right? Help players, boys, girls, youth, whatever it is, because you coach all ages, really. How can they get the best start possible from what you learned to now becoming, 4.5 years in on doing this? What advice would you give to a trainer that wants to start their own, you could say, training program?
I think, kind of going off the back what you said, I think finding your why is really important. And it shouldn't be monetary, it shouldn't be money based. Like, what is it? What is the why that you're doing? Because that will always guide you to the path that you want to go to. My why was always two things: give a player what I feel like I didn't have, right? And then do everything I can to help that player in any way possible. And that has led into me doing phone calls, at nighttime with players based on some mental performance stuff or game analysis, right? That has led me into, going and watching games for players. That's always led me into things that I didn't plan on doing, but the path opened up for me, and so it felt right? And that was because the why was always to help the player. And then the money comes, right? Anything that you want always comes off the back of that why, right? And so I think, I see a lot of private trainers who, and I think it's great for the community, by the way. I think more coaches is great, as long as the intentions are right. I think I really enjoy seeing people pop up and seeing new trainers, and especially seeing ones who are like energetic and want to help players. But I think finding that why is the key. If you want to get out of in a sense, the rubble of all the other people starting out, you have to make the kids, the parents, the people in the community feel that you're doing it for a certain purpose, And if you can do that, no matter the drills, I mean, look, the drills can be great, but people don't care about that. People care about how you make them feel. Are you inspiring progression? Are you inspiring growth? Are you inspiring new thoughts, new feelings? And if you leap with that, and that's why anytime I go into a session, I think that's the thing that gives me the energy to keep going, even if it's my 9th session of the day, right? Because the kid doesn't matter. The kid doesn't care how long I've been out on the pitch.
No.
The kid only cares about how I'm making them feel in that moment, and is that going to progress them to where they want to be? So I think that would be number one: find your why, right? And write it down. Like, put it there and keep it there. Like, put it somewhere where you can constantly check in on it. Because now, I have to do that. I do that every day. I write down normally about 10 things that one I want from the day, and also I want to kind of put into the world, right? Because there's so much going on and so many people trying to pull you certain directions, but if it's not part of your why, then you shouldn't do it. I think the next thing is, especially for private trainers, is connect with the kid. Connect, right? Like Nico, the kid I was talking about, my first ever player, I trained him today. I train him almost every day. We talk on the phone. We talk about things that are outside of soccer too. So like, and that's all due to connecting with that player. Because as a private trainer, I decided when I first started that I wanted to be someone that player could be transparent with, that wouldn't be someone who they could discuss things with and not be judged or not be, berated. And I think for me personally, that's been a great thing that I've done,
No.
you know, because people are always willing to give back when you give in that way, you know.
Yeah. And who would you say inspired you to be a private trainer? Is there someone that you try to model after, a certain coach, a certain person, somebody in your life that maybe had a certain impact on you? Like, I want my coaching style to be similar to that person, that coach. Anybody in particular that comes out?
It's a
Comes to
tough
mind?
one. I think at the beginning, I was trying to do things maybe the opposite, which was an interesting start. I think that I had bad role models growing up, bad coaches growing up. And so, in my opinion, obviously for other players, they might be amazing, but in my opinion, they weren't good for me. And so for me, it was almost like I wanted to flip that and be a coach that players could look at and enjoy the session and not feel like they had to, you know, be a certain way in that session or have a, you know, a certain style of training, you know, where they could come in, they could enjoy the session and also work really hard. It didn't have to be all serious. It didn't have to be, and Scotland's like that anyway. Scotland's very, you know, rugged and stuff like that. So for me at the beginning, it was kind of that I want to build something that isn't these coaches.
Yeah.
And then as I went, you know, obviously Pep Guardiola, or there's a few private trainers as well. I don't know if you know Jonah. He's one that at the beginning when I first started out, I would look at. I liked his energy. I liked the way he, you know, spoke about certain things. So that would be kind of the one. But for me, it's tough because similar to you, I pull a lot of different things from other parts of life, not just soccer. So yeah, you know.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good because I think we all have to pull back, especially when we get into you know, moving from player to now coach, leader, mentor. You have to go back into your memory and find ways who impacted me, you know, what has shaped me to be not only the player or person, right? The more importantly, the person I am today. And what good things did they do for me that I remember that I can actually transfer over now to my players, or what experiences weren't so good that I never want to put my players that I'm in charge of through, right? And that's just awareness, right? As you get older, you kind of just have to think back and analyze, reflect, and say, well, okay, how are you know, what was my upbringing at this age? What were we working on? But also what was healthy, what wasn't healthy, right? And then how can we make it better? But it's a tough one because I think myself, I can speak from my experience when I started getting into coaching, did team training, and then all I could do was remember what the last coach did for me. But it doesn't mean that that was what the players I had in front of me needed. I didn't know better, right? You only know what you know, right? And so now moving into, you know, finding the needs, how important is it to know the player you're working with specifically, and how they can transfer what they're doing with you now to their team? Because I think that's a huge thing that a lot of people miss, right? They want to work on, right? Just an example, right? I'm not saying you do it or a lot of people do it, but I've just noticed, you know, myself, I felt like I was at a point as a private trainer at one point where I was just focusing on so many things, and maybe it was just my fault, right? You just, okay, this player wants to do this, they want to do this. Okay, we're gonna work on a little bit of everything, but is it really what that player needs?
Yeah.
Right. And so how are you able to tailor your exercises to what your players' needs are?
Yeah, so this is something that I discuss with a lot of different private trainers.
Yeah.
And my style has changed. I at the beginning, I feel like I was doing a lot of different things, just like you were saying. And I think that there was benefit, but I felt like it wasn't, you know, fulfilling in the sense of like, it didn't feel specific, right? And so what I started doing was I categorize it in two ways. So the first one is, what do I think are the most important technical elements of the game, right? And then the next one is, what do I think that player needs? And for me, I have these things that I constantly go over, right? A simple one would be body position and scanning. Those are two simple ones that I feel are the most important technical aspects of the game, right? And, even high level players don't fully understand the details of those two things, where their foot placement should be, or how their body shape should be, or how they should be loaded in the knees to accelerate out of their touch, these small things. And then what does that player specifically need, right? And we talked about the stages that I go through with my players. And so like stage one is mastering the fundamentals of the game, right? So if they're at a lower level or a younger age, it's mastering those simple fundamentals, right? Receiving, passing, controlling, dribbling at speed, right? Dribbling with the head up. These little details that I go through stages on. Then the next one is finding who you are. Who are you as a player, right? And that's normally about 13 to 15, that little age gap, because that's when they're obviously growing. They're becoming who they're going to be. And so there's also some, in their own mind, there's some thoughts about, like maybe they're not as fast as other players at this moment, or maybe they're not as big as other players. And so there's some games getting played in the mind there. So what I like to do is focus on strengths, make them feel good about themselves in those development years. And then the 15 to 18 is, or 16 to 18 is position specific only, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's how I separated those stages. Yeah, but really like figuring out with that player what they want to work on. And I also like to ask the players a lot of questions. Yeah. Every day I have questions for them. And sometimes they're shy and sometimes they don't want to answer them, but I really want to get a gauge of what that player's feeling, how they are, and what they want to work on every week. Every week I talk to them, because I do feel like players know, right? Sometimes they're a little, hesitant to tell me, but once we get into the swing of things, they always know, right? I want to work on this. I want to do this. I lost the ball here, or whatever it is, especially 13, 14, 15, those ages. So yeah, that's our categories. One part of it is the fundamentals that I think are the most important. And then what does that player need? And all of my drills, for the most part, I create it so that it's interchangeable. So either you can, turn on this one if I feel like the turn is lacking, or you can open up your hips here, or you can drive on this one. And I always create it so that it's interchangeable to that player's needs. Maybe, change a few different poles, whatever it is. But the concept is the same. So if I want to work on opening up the body shape, right? But I feel like that player needs to work on turning also, right? So that's my focus. My focus is opening up the body, right? And then playing a pass or taking a touch. That's my concept. But then I'll add a part in there where I want to work on that player's turning also. So I'll interchange it with each one so that I still get my concepts in, but the player still gets their part of it.
Got it. Yeah, no, that makes sense. How much do you feel as a coach you need to apply pressure in these situations? Because I know we talk about this often, right? The whole isolated training versus having pressure. How much of it have you realized now, 4.5 years in, how important is it to add pressure now to your training sessions than what you did maybe in the past? Have you noticed a difference in maybe switching that up, where it benefits players, maybe delayed pressure, maybe like you're saying, like, right, just because of the game, and this is just from generally speaking, right? Because the game has so many variables, right? Each situation may look similar, but it's not going to be the same, 100%. Right? Because many factors. One, it could be the defender. The defender you're playing against could be slower than the previous defender, could be faster, could be stronger, etc. Right? They could be distance a little bit closer. There's so many variables that, and not only that, the type of pass that you're receiving, it's not always the same. So how do you deal with this to be able to have them really transfer this training to the game now with the variables included?
Yeah. So one thing that I do a lot is at least once a month, I try and get some players into group sessions, either partner or groups, especially the ones that have been with me for a long time and they're at a very high level or they're older. I do everything I can to get them into groups because I think that, like they need pressure. They need to feel that. There's a little analogy I thought of is like there's a lot of players who have a lot of tools, but they don't know which one to use, right?
Yeah.
They have a lot of tools in the toolbox, but they don't know which one goes into each screw. And that is, in part based on individual trainers. They teach a lot of skills, but there's not like a set one that they're explaining the reasoning behind it, right? So that's one thing I do. I try and get them into groups and partner sessions and 3-player sessions. And anytime they're in those modes, there's always pressure, right? For me, I separate it, right? The individual stuff is the technical aspects that they need to work on. So a left back might need to work on a cross, right? And that's for reps. That's for straight reps. Then when they get into a group session, then it's pressurized. And yeah, it's tough. I think also we kind of connect on this. I don't think individual training is the be all and end all. I think I'm only a supplement to what team coaches are doing and what the game is, which is playing, right? And if a player is not doing that, it's useless.
Yeah, that's
my opinion on that. I know a lot of private coaches say that they're the reason that players develop and all this stuff. I personally don't agree with that. I believe that it has to be a holistic approach, and private coaches can help and team coaches can help. But if you're not playing the game, it does not matter, right? And so for me, training a player once a week, I know what I am to that player.
Yeah,
I'm the person that is working to improve their technical ability, because I spoke to a coach about this before, was a lot of tactical elements cannot be performed without technical consistency or level. So if you want to switch the ball, but a player can't physically play a ball 30 yards, then it doesn't matter, right? If the center mid can't turn on a half turn consistently, it doesn't matter, right? If a striker can't hold the ball up, right, and doesn't know which foot to use when they turn, doesn't matter. And so I think for me, I've put myself in that category. What does that player need? What are the technical elements that are going to allow them to perform better? And then how can they utilize team coaching, which they should anyway, and playing to do that? But if a player isn't playing a lot, it doesn't matter to me,
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah,
it's tough. It's tough because I think, unfortunately, a lot of, and I know why, I think it's also that there's a business aspect to it, where a lot of private trainers, I don't want to say pretend, because they obviously are a big part of the development, but they make it as though they're the reason that these players develop.
They overemphasize their role.
Great word, overemphasize it. Yeah, they overemphasize it, right? And for me, I don't see it that way, because we're just a supplement. I'm just trying to supplement what you're doing. Like, you text me about Lexi, one of your girls on your team, and you're like, she needs to work on this, and then I'll go work on it, right? Like, I'm not saying no, we need to work on this part of it. Like, you're the team coach, you see this in a game scenario, right? And so
you should have seen the cross she gave yesterday.
Was it nice?
She gave the game tying cross.
Amazing. Yeah.
Took it down the line.
Yeah.
3 players, turned her hips like we talked about.
Love it.
Hit it over 2 players to a striker, striker controlled, and place it in the corner.
That's lovely. So that's, to me, that right there is a bit of fulfillment, right? Like, we spent a long time working on her rotating, getting on the outside of the ball and attacking it from a different angle so she could get that. But I don't believe that is any more important than what you're teaching her, right? Or what you're doing. But I think that's where the mix up is. And I think that's also sometimes where some animosity between private trainers and like team coaches, because I think some team coaches see that and see private trainers taking all the credit for development when that's not the case, right? So yeah, that's the way I kind of try and frame it as much as possible. Obviously, some people just want individual, and I do as much as I can to take them out of that, because I know what the needs are. But it is what it is.
How much do you connect with the head coaches of these players, or how important do you feel it is? If you don't do this already, but and if you do it, great. But how important do you think it is for group and private trainers to actually have a relationship with the head coaches? Because I feel like I think that's a key thing that we're missing, right?
For sure.
How often do you do that?
I try and do as much as possible. One, obviously it's not going to happen all the time, but there's also been some times where team coaches have not wanted to do that and have actually told the player to stop training because they don't want them doing extra training, which is an interesting one because they say it's useless and those kind of things. But I try and do as much as possible. And for me, it's important to get a gauge also for that individual of how that coach sees them too, right? Like, how do they see them? How do they see them as a player? How do they see their mental side of the game, which is something I've really been focused on recently. And so I try and do as much as possible. Sometimes it gets hard just with a lot of team coaches don't want to talk to, they're not like yourself, right? They don't want to talk to private coaches. And so, yeah, it can be a little weird, but I've done it,
Yeah, it's good. No, it's good. And of course, everybody's different,
Yeah.
No one's better than someone else for not reaching out, or someone's not as good because they are reaching out, or they're better than some. No, it's case by case, right? So that's an interesting one. So now with players that you've seen, you could say closer to, I would say, the performance ages, right? The late teens to maybe early 20s.
Yeah.
What is it that you look to improve on the most as they get to those ages, right? What have you noticed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I've been very blessed to work with older players, which I never thought was going to be a big thing of my training, but it turns out it has been. And the older players are very interesting because, again, a lot of private coaches, just talking to players. I like to talk to players. They overemphasize the coaching aspect when it comes to those sessions, right? So let's say I have a 21-year-old plays for Las Vegas Lights, let's say, right? For the most part, they are coming to me for maintenance. They're not coming to me really to develop the game too much. They will give me, I always ask with the older players, always before the session, can you give me a layout of maybe some things you want to work on? Always ask that. But they're coming to me for maintenance, like when I train Curtis Jones, Anthony Gordon, Kempembe, they're not coming to me for coaching. They don't want to be coached by me.
Are you sure?
Yeah, they're in the Premier League, right? They are already at level.
Yeah,
they're coming to me, so their body keeps ticking over. So they get some different angles, some different looks, some different feels. So they feel good. That's another massive one for the older players, is driving energy, right? I think a lot of private coaches just think it's their drills. It's not. It's how you make that player feel when they come in. Because I think the older players, they have a lot more pressure on them, right? They normally come to me in preseason, right? And the contracts kind of like, the contracts are like, am I going to make it? Am I not going to make it? It's a 1-year contract. There's a lot of pressure there. And really my goal of that is to make them feel sharp, make them feel really light, mentally as well, joke around with them, like try and massage out any of those kinks that they maybe have mentally from the season, get that stress away. And then hopefully they can be going back into the season where they're flying again, feeling good about themselves. So that's what's different about the younger ages and the pros, or the older ages, is for most of them, they might want to work on crossing, right? But I'm not coming in there and going through the whole crossing sequence. That's not what I'm doing now. What I'm doing is I'm there for repetitions. I'm there to maybe, if I feel that they're in their head too much, to maybe try and tweak it a little bit. That's it, right? So yeah, that's a good question. It's a completely different form of training.
Yeah. And knowing that, again, I think it goes back to knowing the needs of your players.
Yeah.
Right. We can't generalize players in different ages doing the same exercises. I was guilty of that.
Yeah.
Like I'll be the first one to admit, when I did group training, all I did was, sometimes use the same exercises for 2-3 different players, at a time. I had maybe back-to-back sessions. It's the easiest thing to do, set up one session and then just adjust as needed, and sometimes come up with something, on the fly, something. And then I thought about it. I was like, I got to stop doing this, and so I just say, no, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. And it's not for everybody, because it's a lot. You put in a lot of hours on that field. And sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to do this, you know? And how do you as a coach deal with the mental side of like just being there for hours and hours, sometimes all day, right? On the field, you know, and you know, most people don't understand that. So, like you said, the kid shows up. They don't care whether you've been there since 8 a.m. and it's 4 p.m.
Yeah.
You know, they really don't. So how do you deal with that mental side for yourself to stay motivated and help your body and your mind, you know, through that?
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. Any coach who does those 6, 7, 8, 9 hours sessions a day and they tell you, oh, it's easy, they're lying. It's tough, especially in summer. It's tough. I think for me, like, to simplify it, because I think that for me, it's just a case of, if I am demanding an elite attitude or elite work rate from my players, then I have to have the same.
Mm.
And what's really interesting is the players who have been with me for a while, who know how hard I work, the level of respect they have for me is based due to that work.
Mm.
Right? Like the amount of players who comment on me waking up at 5 a.m. to do sessions, you know, sessions at 6, and the amount of players who have, based on that, asked me if they can come out at 6, right, to try it out, is huge. And so for me, that's my drive. It's not the coaching. It's, can I inspire a player to do more based on what I'm doing, right? And you know, that's what keeps me ticking, because I love when people there was a parent the other day who drove by in the morning and I was there, and then drove by at nighttime and I was still there. And that parent, in their mind, you know, they were, I'll be candid on it, they were a parent who had kind of fell out of the sessions for 3 months, 4 months. They saw me do that, and next day they text me, hey, we want to get sessions again, right? So that's the aspect of it. It's, you know, if I am not pushing myself to that limit, and obviously I have a lot of things that I do throughout the day to keep me going. You know, I really take care of my body. I really take care of my mind. I try and do as much as I can to recover. I journal a lot. I meditate a lot. I do a lot of different things to try and stay there. It doesn't always work, but that's really it. If I'm going to inspire kids to push themselves to the limit they have to get to be a professional or a D1 or just reach their dreams, then I have to be doing the same. Right?
You almost hold each other accountable, right?
Exactly. And then it's funny because once they, like, let's say I don't do it. This is what's really cool now as well. Let's say I haven't woke up that early, or, you know, whatever it is, and the kid asks me and I say, no, I didn't. You can see they're kind of like, oh, so then it like pushes me even more to be like, I gotta do this again, you know? Like almost like a kid said
to me, you can take a break, I can take a break.
Yeah,
too,
exactly.
right?
So like a kid said to me, I was doing the quotes on the 6 a.m. watch, right? And a kid said to me, you haven't really been posting on the 6 a.m. recently, right? And then I went on 4 weeks straight of like posting 6 a.m., right? It wasn't that I wasn't waking up, it was just I was forgetting to do it. I was just in a down cycle, right? And that kid saying that just spurred on, okay, I need to go back to doing this, right? So like I think for me, yes, it's that aspect of like, I want kids to look at me and go, you know, like, wow, that's cool. Wow, that's inspiring. Wow, that person is working very. Wow, that person is working hard to develop me. You know, so then as they go, if I'm not working hard and that person is working that hard to develop me, then what's going on? You know, and I think with that, I've seen the most benefit with kids, you know, because then they respect me and then they want to match my intensity. And then from there, it's everything else is, you know, it's great. Yeah.
I'm gonna switch over a little bit to something very interesting, because I think clubs, you know, we just live in the new world now. With clubs, private trainers, parents, you know, kid accounts now on social media, etc. Everybody wants to be seen, right? Everybody wants to be heard. Everyone wants, you know, the me, right? Yeah. And then we're all guilty of this, you know, to a certain extent, especially when you have a brand, especially when you have or just get caught up in the FOMO of things, right? But how have you been able to create your brand from, your first strike training to now where it's at, right? And we'll share the details in the notes of the episode, but how important is it for you now to have a following? Like, how much of a responsibility do you feel it is to continue to grow there?
None at all.
Really?
I hate social media. I hate it. Honestly, if I could do it without social media, if I feel like I could do it on my path, I probably would let it go. And actually, I'm working towards to where I don't have to be on it. I really don't like it. It doesn't match my mental balance really, right? Like, I normally post and just leave the post. I don't look at it again. I don't look at how many likes it got or follows or anything. I really don't. But it's good for business, and it is good for business, and it's something that I've definitely had a love-hate relationship with for a long time, because I think that there was a period when I first started gaining followers that I was creating drills for the videos. And there was maybe like a 2-3 month period where I was just like, this doesn't feel right, And so now I completely don't do that, which is good. I think that's a learning curve when it comes to social media, because you get so much attention from things. And I think for me, yeah, it's not that important to me, to be honest, and I get a lot of stick for it from parents. You don't follow my kid, or you don't repost this, or whatever it is. But I don't follow my wife, like it's not something that I'm doing because I really want to. It's just something that is positive for the brand and positive for business.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's an interesting. It's always there's a tug of war there for sure. It's crazy to think about how it has grown. But to be honest, for me, what I'm doing is much more important. Like one of my favorite video I've posted to date was, I don't know if you saw it, the one of Ben.
Loved it.
That was my favorite video that I posted to date. And it didn't do well. It didn't do well. It didn't do well on likes, but it did not matter to me. It was honestly my favorite video I've posted, because if I can do that, if I can use the platform to help kids and to help, inspire maybe another kid who's maybe at another club who wants to get to LAC Academy and whatever, and I can, make Ben feel great and he loved it, like that's way more important to me. Yeah, but it is crazy.
Yeah, it goes back to your why, right?
It goes back to the why, and that's it.
Like, why.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the whys to develop,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
good.
No,
it's really good, because I think we're all caught up in the eyeballs and the likes and the comments, and and it's hard because we also want to be seen, want to be heard. Parents, again, grading accounts for their kids, and like it's great. It's like, hey, to each your own, right? That's great, because everybody wants to be seen, and everybody wants to be famous, etc., and be asked to play here and do this, right? Of course, like that's but if you as a coach, a private trainer, for example, is to put out the messages that you're putting out, where you want to be held accountable, you want to be able to grow, you want to be able to be your best self.
Yeah,
that's your message. That's what you're preaching. That's what you're doing. That's what you're putting out there. Then you're going to attract those type of followers, or even that tribe, just like in anything you do, right? So it all comes down to, again, what message do you want to have out there? It could be a general blanket, a little bit of everything, or it could be specific on the message that you're trying to put out. So for any private trainers out there looking to grow, what advice would you have on that aspect, to grow, let's say, because a lot of them do want to grow.
For sure. That's a good question. I think one thing I wanted to say on that too, and I'll go into the growth aspect, is as a private trainer too, like I fell into this, and this I had to get out of it, was posting things to push yourself, your brand, your business. And it's just, I just want to say to any private coaches who are looking to grow, be very cautious on that mentality, or that kind of style of posting, because I think that it not only goes into posting, but it comes back into your training. You know, like if you're constantly posting about, look what I'm doing as a coach, look what I'm doing, look who I'm with, look at how cool I am, right? When you get into the sessions, it does seep into that, you know, whereas if you start posting based on, look how good look at this little baller, look at this, like, look at this community, you know, like that, then also seeps into your training, right? So I think that maybe just a word of wisdom is if you're a private trainer, make sure you find your why, and your marketing follows that why, right? But yeah, on the sense of growth, like, one easy thing to do is post every day and don't worry about the likes, right? I got challenged by a friend who's in content, a very good friend of mine, and he challenged me to post 100 days. 100 days, doesn't matter what it is, just post 100 days. And over those 100 days, my social media grew from, I think it was at like 1,500 or something like that, and by the end of it was at 8,000, right? Because I was very consistent in what I was doing, and some of them hit and some of them didn't, right? So post every day, doesn't matter what it is. Don't worry about likes, don't worry about comments, don't worry about these things, just post. The next thing I would say is nurture the community. If people are commenting on your stuff, I see this a lot, comment back, write something back, and not just write something back, write something valuable, right? If someone says something to you about, you know, oh, what does this drill help? Or where can we get those poles? Or, you know, whatever it is, write something that's valuable, because that person will probably comment on your next, right? And that's another way as well, as a person, that you feel like you're kind of like creating a little community and doing these things, even if it's, you know, someone who's not even from LA, it might be somewhere else, but you feel like you're creating a little network here. That's something that's really good for your personal momentum, right? Oh, this one got 10 comments and people are actually commenting on it, people are actually caring about my drill, right? Another thing that I had to deal with too, which I'm sure a lot of private trainers are dealing with, is hate, right? A lot of people commenting bad stuff. And it's tough not to, you know, to hold your tongue on that stuff. Honestly, what I've done now is I just match it with, like, in a sense, love, right? It's cliche, but love, right? I just match it with, you know, being nice. Look, if someone thinks it's useless, hey, can we jump on a call? Or can we, you know, you want to DM and we can talk about this? Like, I'd love to hear your point of view on it. Because I think a lot of people comment hate just for a reaction, you know. And a lot of the time when I do that back, they're really nice. They're like, oh, I didn't think you would see this. I didn't mean to, like, you know, do anything. Like, yeah, we can talk, or yeah, you know, whatever it is. So I think that's another thing too. The last thing would be just create cool content that the things that people want to watch, you know, like, it's not always about your drills, you know, sometimes it's about you just chatting and having a laugh on camera. Or, you know, don't be especially as a private trainer, don't be so rigid in how you post. Try and have yourself in it, try and have who you are. If you're funny, if you're jokey, if you're like, you know, you're like banter or whatever it is, throw that in a video, you know. If you're big on the mental stuff, which I am, throw it in a video. Doesn't matter if it does well, right? Just throw it in a video. Some people like it. Something cool happened the other day, actually. I was at Whitset and one of the coaches was coming as I was leaving, and he came up to me and he said, hey, I really like your videos on when you talk about the mental health stuff, right? Didn't know him, but it was cool, because for me, I was like, I'm just putting it out there. Like, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, right? You're putting that out there. This is my ideas, and someone sees it, right? And so that again feeds into the network and the community and all those things. So that's for me the main thing. But again, it all comes down to the purpose of the why, right?
Yeah, of course.
If you want followers, then you can
people can even go and buy followers, right? But what's the point of that?
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
What's the point of that?
For sure.
Oh, it's good. It's good. So what are the next few months? What's the next year look like for Coach Bradley?
There's a lot going on. You know, I'm blessed to be in this position where you know, I'm busy and I'm on podcasts with you, you know, like, I'm blessed to be in these positions. But I think For me, summer's always really big. I have some camps coming up. I'm partnered with Nike on some camps, so I'll be doing them. And then, have some pros coming in summer that I'll be training normally in July. And then I'm looking to expand as well, possibly bring in a coach, possibly, something like that. Because one thing for me too is my goal was always help as many kids as I could possibly can. And I was always, said to myself, no, I'm just going to do this myself. I'm just going to build this myself. And then I realized that if you can find the right people to be around you and to also push that energy, it's beneficial for everyone.
Yeah.
So when I made that mental switch, and it fits the why, right? It just has to be the right person. When I made that mental switch, then that is now my next phase for me, So yeah, that's what's next for me.
That's good. That's exciting. Because then you start to multiply yourself and the amount of people, like you're saying, that you can help.
Yeah.
That's where the key word is. Right?
Yeah.
And last thing before we go, a book that you'd recommend to a parent, coach, player. What's one thing that you would recommend to the community?
It's an interesting book. It's something it doesn't have anything to do with soccer. It's just to do with life, but it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People, by Dale Carnegie. I've read it maybe, 10 times. I don't know, something like that. It sounds an intrusive book, right? How to win friends and influence people. But in reality, it's just about, personal connection and things to look out for in life and business that, to create relationships. It's a really good book, something that I, always refer back to when I'm in life. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent book.
Yeah.
Excellent book. And then a quote, any quotes that you one of your favorite quotes. Big on this, but
I have one in my mind right now. My wife said it, but so I got to give her the credit. But comparison is a thief of joy. That's been the one that's been sitting on my mind. I think that in today's world with social media, and I feel it too, right? There's a lot of comparison going on, but in reality, that just pulls you off your path. Because if you're always following or always, trying to compare yourself to someone else, you'll never be you. And, for the most, in life, like who you are is enough. It's enough. You just have to know who that is. And you just have to really strive towards being that person. And it's enough. You don't have to compare yourself to people. So I think that one, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, that's a good one. Really good. Really good. I think losing that North Star sometimes, it's important to know. And lastly, where can people find more information about you, your training, upcoming camps, and what you have going on? What's the best way to connect?
On social, First Strike Soccer. And the website's the same, firststrikesoccer.com.
Okay. And what platforms are you on where people can find you? What's the best?
Instagram, TikTok, Twitter a little bit, but Instagram and TikTok is the main ones.
Got it. Okay. And I'll share that information in the notes too.
Thank
so
you, mate.
if anybody wants to connect and check out what you got, that'd be great. I recommend it. Any last thoughts before we go?
No, maybe just something we talked about before is like, I think that everyone has interest in viewpoints. And I think that it's always important to talk to people who maybe have different viewpoints than yourself. In this life, I feel like there's a lot of opposition going on. And I think that when you actually start discussing things with people who you feel that you didn't connect with or didn't see eye to eye with, you realize, oh, we're not that different, right? It expands your mind. It expands also that relationship, because if you do have a conversation with someone that goes well and you thought you were going to butt heads a lot, and even if you do, it doesn't matter, right? But if you find some compromise in there, then that also strengthens maybe that network and that connection and those things. So I think that would be it. Yeah.
It's good. Great stuff. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll definitely be seeing you soon on the field. So we definitely appreciate your work. I know the local community, has nothing but great things to say about you as a person, as a coach. So
thank you.
Anybody that is in the area, LA area, northern LA area, recommend definitely reaching out, connecting with Coach Bradley. So thanks again for coming on. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you.
All right. Have a good one.
Thanks, man. See you soon. Bye.